Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." This was found on brainyquotes.com. In order to help you understand my topic, I have researched the following sources: brainyquotes.com, goodreads.com, wikipedia.org, csmonitor.com, thekinglegacy.org, nobelprize.org, youthforhumanrights.org, and afroamhistory.org. So my name is Britt Blackwell, and of the many people who contributed to the civil rights movement, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of the most influential activists. I'm providing a tribute to Dr. King. The 3 main points of my speech are: number 1, the many obstacles he endured and overcame. Number 2, superior accomplishments he has earned throughout his life. And finally, number 3, benefits to society and result from his hard work and dedication to civil rights freedom. So Martin Luther King Jr. said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." I found this on goodreads.org. So my first main point is that Martin Luther King Jr. overcame many obstacles. Martin Luther King Jr. was arrested over 20 times, received many threatening phone calls, his house was bombed and set on fire, and King faced opposition from not only whites and their leaders, but also from some people of his own race. I found this on wikipedia.org. Lasting just over a year, the Montgomery bus boycott was a protest campaign against racial segregation on the public transit system in Montgomery, Alabama. The protest began on December 1st, 1955, after African-American Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat for another white bus rider. The next day, Dr. King proposed a citywide boycott of public transportation at a church meeting. The boycott proved to be effective, causing the transit system to run a huge deficit. I found this on csmonitor.com. So in 1956, on January 26, MLK is arrested as part of a Get Tough campaign to intimidate the bus boycotters. On January 30th, his home is bombed. He successfully pleads for calm to a vengeful crowd of neighbors gathered outside his home. On November 13th, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation is illegal. After Black Montgomery walked for more than 1 year as part of the boycott, on the morning of December 21st, MLK is one of the first bus riders to ride on the newly integrated buses. I found this on thekingslegacy.com. So in the Bible, in Mark chapter 12, verses 30 through 31, it says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength." The second is this: "Love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." I found this on goodreads.com. So my second point is the superior accomplishments that Dr. King has throughout his life. So Dr. King began his doctoral studies at Boston University in systematic theology and received his PhD degree. In 1986, a federal holiday was also established because of him. He also received the Nobel Peace Prize for combating racial inequality throughout nonviolence. I found this on wikipedia.org. So the goal of the Nobel Peace Prize is to award people who have done the most of the best work for fraternity between nations, for the abolition or reduction of standing armies, and for the holding and promotion of peace congresses. In 1964, King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. At the age of 35, Martin Luther King Jr. was the youngest man in history to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. When notified of his selection, he was announced that he would turn over the prize money of $54,123 to the furtherance of the civil rights movement. I found this at nobelprize.org. So Martin Luther King Jr. said, Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. I found this on brainyquotes.com. So my last and final point are the benefits to society and result from his hard work and dedication to the civil rights freedom. The movement was so powerful that he inspired Congress to enact the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the same year King was honored for his Nobel Peace Prize. The act was not only led the way for the Voting Rights Act of 1965, but also paved the way for programs like affirmative action. I found this on youthforhumanrights.org. Martin Luther King Jr. helped all races, especially African Americans. The Civil Rights Movement in 1964 ended segregation and discrimination throughout the United States. I found this on youthforhumanrights.org. So Obama, the nation's first African American president, has credited the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as the Voting Rights Act of 1965, with expanding opportunities for people of color. It says, "The world has evolved considerably in the half-century that has passed since the signing of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. As our first African American president, Barack Obama is the fulfillment of the promise of the civil rights legislation delivered by President Johnson and a bipartisan Congress." I found this on afroamhistory.org. Martin Luther King once said, "And when this happens, and when we allow freedom ring, we will let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city. We will be able to speed up that day when we all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, we will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last." I found this on brainyquotes.com. So Dr. King deserves a tribute because he overcame many obstacles, he accomplished many superior awards, and even had laws made because of him. And finally, the society benefits from his hard work and dedication to civil rights freedom. So finally, I feel Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. should be an inspiration to anyone trying to make a charge. He chose to not stay silent, but to stand up for his beliefs. Without his passion and faith in God to guide him, he would have never achieved the accomplishments he did. Dr. King is a role model to everyone and started to change towards no discrimination against race that ultimately led to new voting rights and the United States' first black president. Thank you.